welcome to the Wisetail podcast. Today's guest is Cody Pepper. Cody's journey started with Be Healthy Cafe as a customer, but his passion for the brand led him to become a consultant, co-owner, and eventually CEO in 2021. In 2025, he formed Fast Fresh Brands, bringing Be Healthy Cafe under its umbrella. He continues to drive growth and innovation in the healthy, fast casual space, most recently with the acquisition of Florida-based Nature's Table. Welcome, Cody. Sounds like you've been pretty busy this year.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So obviously I mentioned that you had just acquired or just made an acquisition this year of Nature's Table. So can you quickly talk about your overall growth strategy and what that acquisition and what your plan for that has been?
Yeah. Well, we were thrilled to discover Nature's Table. I was introduced to the brand about a year prior to acquiring by a mutual friend, somebody who said, "Oh man, you got to know these guys. They're very similar to your concept, which was Be Healthy Cafe, but in a different market." And so we started researching them, and he wasn't lying. Very similar, fresh and quick service model, aligned with us perfectly. And so after about a year of due diligence and meeting the folks, we decided to go ahead and close the deal and acquire them. And in that due diligence phase, we realized that there were some real opportunities for growth with the brand. The brand had been around for 40 plus years. It's two founders, Rich and Brian, who started and led the company. And a really good foundation, a really great menu, a really great franchisee base, but opportunities for updating some of the approaches. Now, coincidentally, Be Healthy Cafe had been going through this innovation over the prior 2 years that we'd been working with a real strategic growth plan, implementing marketing, focusing on specific product mix pieces that would allow us to increase top line, increase bottom line, and encourage, inspire, and fund the opening of new units. And so we wanted to apply that same framework with Nature's Table by focusing on the top line up, bottom line up, and new units count up strategy.
Nice. And yeah, in our prep, you had mentioned a 90-day plan to incorporate the brand. Can you take us through that plan and where you are right now with it?
Yeah. So for the first 90 days, it was all about listening and communicating. It was about looking for opportunities, and it was about going live. And so in the first 90 days, the first 30 days really, where golly, I'm sitting here and we're coming up on 90 days in about 6 days. So we're coming up to the end. But in the first 30 days, we met together as a team and we did a cultural exchange where we brought everybody into Florida, into the corporate offices of Nature's Table, who would be working together to meet each other and to understand kind of the stories that existed in the company. And then we commissioned an internal study or report that we called the EAR reports, which was efficiencies and alignment reports. And really it was all about being in a listening phase so that we could better understand what opportunities existed in the company. And that would give us guidance as to how would we want to start rolling out. In addition to communication internally, we also did communication externally. We wanted to make sure that we communicated with all of the franchisees and all of the vendors and all of the strategic partners of the Nature's Table brand to share what had happened, to communicate what our plan was in the meantime and how we were going to approach the future. Not because we had answers coming in, but because we had a framework for how we were going to approach it. And so communication in the first 30 days was essential, both listening and sharing. So we accomplished that. We completed that phase. Then we started doing our internal rollout over the next 90 or the next 30 days, which was some of the low-hanging fruit, the really easy alignment opportunities. You know, we do certain things that Be Healthy that they do at Nature's Table. We thought, golly, we don't need two people doing this separately. We can have it centralized. And so we created our central services model. And that's been the project over the last 60 days, creating that framework. And then the last 30 days is about implementation and rollout of all of those strategies that I just outlined.
Yeah, and I want to get into the shared services in a second, but first, you had mentioned communication. So especially with the internal employees, what was your strategy to, I mean, I've been through a couple acquisitions and I think that communication is the key point there.
Yeah.
Your strategy to communicate with internal stakeholders to build confidence in the brand and the acquisition?
It's a really great question. So I think communication is the most important thing that we had to do at the beginning, the middle, and still have to keep doing all the way through the end, right? It's ensuring that nobody thought things were being done to them. Um, it's like when you're a little kid and you're sitting in your bedroom and you see a shadow. You don't have an answer, but you now have a fear of what could be, and you start creating this boogeyman or this monster in your mind. Um, we didn't want that to happen. We didn't want this to be some shadowy figure in the background buying the company and then them creating their own story as to what is this going to be like? Who are they?
Yeah.
Um, so our first approach was um, communicate with everybody every way we could as soon as possible and share only what we know, but not make promises or statements that we don't know to be true yet, which meant we weren't going to wait to communicate, but we weren't going to over communicate before we had certainty around what we were saying.
Yeah.
So how did that play out? Well, it played out this way. Hey, everybody, we're Fast Fresh Brands. We acquired Nature's Table. The founders of Nature's Table rolled in some equity. They are still partners in the group. They're not going anywhere. Are things going to change? Well, no more than they would have changed over time, in that businesses always change and we will evolve. We hope to speed up the good stuff and reduce some of the bad stuff that naturally occurs. And so that was really the tone of it: is this is who we are. This is our background. This is why we acquired the brand. This is who's sticking around. Nobody's leaving. And it's going to be an add, not a reduction. You're going to get more out of the deal. That's all we know so far. We're going to spend the next 90 days figuring some stuff out, learning, listening, chatting. We'll be doing meetups in your markets, and then we'll report back. So we said that first, and we did it via email. And then I personally called every single person in the company, every franchisee. We scheduled phone calls. Some of them liked phone calls. Some of them preferred Zooms. We did some text exchanges with people who just wanted to text back and forth, and we sent out emails. So we reached out to all key vendors and all key franchisees that way. And then anybody who worked for the company, we obviously met up with in person, face to face initially, and spoke with them directly, individually and as a team. After having the one-on-one phone calls, we hosted a town hall, a virtual town hall, where we hosted an idea of what our plan was for that 90 days, the 30, 60, 90 that we were rolling out, to share with them how we were going to approach this. And then we, those who couldn't make it, we sent out a link to the video so they could see it after the fact. Then we hosted in-market meetups where I flew out to each of our operating markets, and we had a little happy hour, snacks and some drinks, and brought all the franchisees together and key members together to meet in person and to answer questions and talk a little bit more about where we were. And now we're doing a series of monthly town halls through the whole first year to talk to them about the progress that we're making towards our 12-month plan that I just laid out and revealed in the last town hall.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love the amount of personal communication that you went into. I think that probably helps a lot as far as being able to accept a lot of the change that's coming in. So the other piece that you had mentioned there is shared services. Obviously, you had started the conversation by saying that it was an established brand. They've been around for a while. They've probably obviously got things that are going well for them, as well as
Yeah.
things where you get opportunity to bring in your certain services. So what was that process like? Evaluate where to kind of merge the two processes and where to let each brand kind of stand alone.
Yeah, great question. So when we came in, we want to be really careful, and we still do. Our intention is, how do we improve the product quality to the guest? And that's what it comes down to: is what we're doing making it better for the guest? So we use a framework for evaluating every decision, with the first question being, how does this impact the guest experience? And if by centralizing it, it does not negatively impact the guest experience or it improves the guest experience, then we do it. If by centralizing it, it would damage the guest experience or reduce the quality of differentiation or guest experience, we leave it in the brand. So we use that as a guiding principle of how's this going to impact the guest. Here's an example: product and supply chain sourcing. And if we had that in the brand, somebody focuses on doing that at Nature's Table and focuses on doing it for Be Healthy, then the buying power is a little bit at a lower level, because each brand only buys what each brand buys. which
Mhm.
means the franchisee might have some unique SKUs. However, their purchasing price might be higher because the volume is lower. If we align the SKUs into across the menus in a way that is unnoticeable, maybe it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other as to why we're using a certain lettuce or a certain chicken. But we can align them and then we can have a central service doing all of our sourcing and purchasing. Then we can leverage scale to reduce the cost to the end user and or negotiate better rebates for our franchisees. And so that's one example of a no-brainer on bringing uh, uh, one service into our shared service as opposed to being in the brand. Field operations. Well, obviously, field operations is going to be focused on how do you operate this specific business model? Because what we as a franchisor have to do is we have to be the experts of how to make money with our model so that we can coach our franchisees and share that with them how to make more money in their model. So the field operations team really needs to be at the brand level. They need to know the nuances down to a detail. So those had to stay brand. But things like marketing and advertising, could we do a leverage purchase of media if we did it through shared services? Well, sure, we can. So then that came into a shared service. So that really became the model for how we started evaluating.
Yeah. I love that you're guest first on that too, that you're focusing on the guest experience. I'm curious, obviously you've been with Be Healthy Cafe for a while. Has
And
there been anything in this process that's helped you evaluate maybe something that Nature's Table is doing well that you can incorporate in Be Healthy Cafe?
yeah, certainly there's been a lot. Well, one of the first things that we did was we just pulled up all of the product mix and looked at the top 5 best sellers from each category. And then we just compared, do we have this flavor profile at this company? No? Well, there's an option. And so now it allowed us to jumpstart our menu innovation team. And so we did. We launched a menu innovation team because as a small company, everybody sort of does that. When you get a little bit bigger, you're able to start growing or a little bit more strategically. You can put a little bit more resources into menu innovation and R&D. And so that's what we did is we formed a culinary committee internally that looks at those cross SKUs and those cross items so that we can benefit both brands. Um, uh, Secondly, we start looking at their development process. Nature's Table has sold a ton of franchises over the 40 years of its origin. And so their franchise sales process has been fantastic. Be Healthy is in the infancy. So we started to look at our franchise development kind of process or pipeline and said, okay, what could we learn from each other? And so both of those came together. We actually centralized franchise development into shared services, but by using and leaning on what Nature's Table had been doing for 40 plus years.
Yeah. And then normally I ask this question with a little bit bigger time frame in mind, but normally I'd say if you can go back 5 years, what is there anything that you would change or what advice would you give yourself? But given that you're in the middle of this, is there anything in the last 3 months that if you could go back 3 months and give yourself advice on this, is there anything that you would, or what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me reflect on that for a second.
And you
It's
said
been,
I use one if that's easy. If that's easy.
yeah, I'd say uh, buy Nature's Table 5 years ago. It's a great company.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so the last 3 months, it's been wild. Here's I don't know if I give myself different advice, but I think I just remind myself of this daily. And here's what it is. You probably picked up that my approach in how we think about innovation and change is focused on the customer experience. I showed that. How we focused on the first 90 days was focus on the franchisees as individuals. Everything we do is about people. It's for people. And we don't want to lose sight of that. So we have franchisees, and that's who we focused on when we first came in to make sure that everybody knew what was happening. As we make changes to the business, we want to make sure we remain focused on both the franchisees and the guests who come in. But there's a third category, which is the employees and the founders. And man, I'll tell you, it's not easy on founders. So 5 years ago, I can look back when I joined with Be Healthy, as I came in as a non-founder, and the founding members are still part of the company. You know, Amir Alavi is a key member of Fast Fresh Brands now, working across both brands in the portfolio. And it took a full 6 years to help get them there. And we had the time because we were in no rush. With these acquisition of Nature's Table, I just have to keep reminding myself that the founders have 40 years in this brand, and it means something very different to them than it does to me. I'm looking at the next 40 years. They have 40 years of history pulling on. And so it's just a reminder that while I may be in a hurry and while our board may be in a hurry to produce results and to drive change and to see things moving, I got to remember that getting to the finish line alone is a whole lot worse than getting to the finish line with a group of friends, right? A group of stakeholders who have a lot invested in the company emotionally and financially. And so just making sure that all of these moves are inclusive. And I get in a hurry sometimes. I like producing results. I like driving, and process oriented. So I like the design models. And I think my reminding is, hey, take it a little bit easy, give patients some leeway, and make sure we're not leaving anybody behind.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And then we like to end every episode with a fun, more personal question. If you could create your own custom bumper sticker, what would it say and why?
So would this be about me as the executive of Fast Fresh Brands, or me as an individual?
Just you as an individual, or both. I mean,
okay, let me do the easy one because we're actually working on a bumper sticker statement for the company, coincidentally, and it's called "I love smoothies." And it's simple. And the idea of smoothie in our company, it's a amazing product. The way that we do it is amazing. At both companies, there's really interesting. They're both differentiated. They're not the same approach. So we'll do some testing to find out which the customer likes best. But I Love Smoothies campaign that we're launching is, and we view it as a bumper sticker in there with a cool emoji in the middle. But it's the beauty of it is that the smoothie represents all parts of the day. About the way you want to start your day by thinking about loading yourself with nutrition, so that you can tackle the day ahead. The middle part of the day where you need something quick, you're in a rush. I actually just knocked out my smoothie because I didn't have time for lunch. So I did it as a meal replacement. And then the 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, pick me up to get you through the remainder and tide you over to dinner. And that idea of I Love Smoothies is all about efficiency, productivity, maximizing nutrition to your body. And so I love the idea of the smoothie as like an umbrella species or like an indicator for something bigger about how you live your life, which is healthy, clean, producing results, usually fresh valued. So that would probably be our bumper sticker. It's also what we're launching here. And I guess it would be my personal bumper sticker if I carry the metaphor in that. I like to start the day with a run with some friends. I like to be hyper productive during my work day. I like to end the day relaxing with my family and being, real value up on the home front. And so each part of my day has a specific day part that has a different focus, but I like to have the carry through, like I'm one person. I'm the consistent feature of each of those day parts in my real world. And the smoothie is the consistent feature of the day part in each of our business models. So maybe I'll stick with that.
Well, that's one that speaks with me too. I had started my day with a smoothie today, so I could
Did
get
you
on
really?
these bumper sticker. Yep.
What's your smoothie of choice? What do you make?
We just had it was a new one today. It was a snickerdoodle powder with banana.
Wow.
Yeah.
Decadent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. My fiance picks out all of the smoothie stuff, so I just go whatever she's doing.
That's great. Mine was a real nutrient dense one. It had ginger, it had spinach, it had a handful of like dark berries in it. It had some of our immunity boost in it. I'm getting over a bit of a cold from last week, and so.
Okay, well, it's clear I need to step up my smoothie game.
It helps that our company's. I'm in my office, and we have a restaurant on the ground level of this building. So I got a little bit of a cheat code there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time, Cody. I know you're busy. Thanks for joining us, and we'll hopefully have you on at some other time. Go through the acquisition process.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Cody.